It's March 8th, 2023. On this day, 40 years ago, President Ronald Reagan made an earth-moving speech that has great relevance for today. Roll tape.
I urge you to beware the temptation of pride, the temptation of blithely declaring yourselves above it all and label both sides equally at fault, to ignore the facts of history and the aggressive impulses of an evil empire, to simply call the arms race a giant misunderstanding, and thereby remove yourself from the struggle between right and wrong and good and evil.
There you go, the evil empire. Reagan was talking about the Soviet Union. He could have been talking about China today. We're in a new Cold War, and Beijing is playing the role of the old Soviet Union. China threatens Taiwan, rolls over Hong Kong, embarks on a vast military build-up, spies on everyone, and suppresses freedom everywhere. If that's not an evil empire, what is? Reagan responded to the Soviets with a huge military build-up, which included a new high-tech missile defense system. It was ridiculed as Star Wars back then, but Reagan was right, and he beat the Soviets. What will our response be to China? It is developing as the confrontation developed, and so far that response has been muted. But Reagan showed us how to stand tall and call out our rivals and enemies for what they are. He gave the Western world moral backbone. He seized the moral high ground. Maybe it's time for another evil empire speech, but I wouldn't expect President Biden to make it. Third hour of Varney starts right now. Martha MacCallum with me this morning. Do you think President Biden would make a similar evil empire speech today?
I don't. Because there's no indication that that's what he has in mind. When he talks about the relationship, he constantly says it is competition that we are in. It is not conflict. And that he says that despite the fact that we have COVID, which is now determined by two big agencies to have been a lab leak. Whether or not it was intentional we don't know the answer to that question at this point. It's believed to be unintentional, but perpetuated perhaps, or not stopped to the extent that it could have been. So deadly in that sense. You've got fentanyl coming from China across the border. You have them increasing their army and their navy, far surpassing our capabilities. You have Pentagon concerns about whether or not we could defeat China in battles against the communist nation. So, there's a lot of questions there. And what you're really honing in on there so perfectly is the clarity of Reagan's understanding of what we were facing as a country. And I think as we head into 2024, it's worth all Americans, regardless of your political stripes, asking, do we have that clarity of purpose from the Oval Office? Do people understand what we're up against? And TikTok, boy, that's a whole nother story that is just basically poisoning the brains of young people. There's a great piece in the New York Post this morning.
Yeah, we saw it.
About 14-year-old boys and what they are inundated with. It's essentially like a Pavlovian pounding of guns, misogyny, all of this poisonous information that's being fed to them. And of course, they don't allow that in China. The kids don't see any of it.
Maybe I'll change my opposition to banning TikTok. Maybe I think we should.
But well, I think banning should start at home.
Well said. Here's another one for you. You mentioned this earlier. The intelligence chiefs are being grilled about the origins of COVID right now. Roll that tape, please.
It is entirely fair for us to ask whether the virus that has killed at least 6.8 million people so far might have been accidentally released from a lab in Wuhan. The lack of transparency in China's authoritarian systems may mean that we will never be absolutely certain where COVID-19, or God forbid, the next pandemic, could have or will next originate.
Martha, do you think we'll ever get real transparency from China?
No, I don't think there's any reason to expect that, but I'd like to see real transparency here in this country.
Good.
What we're learning now is that there was a battle going on between Dr. Fauci and Dr. Redfield, who I'm going to have on the program this afternoon, over whether or not it was possible that it could have been a lab leak. So what we need is scientific transparency here, so that we know that we have the best minds weighing in and that nobody's message is being squashed and ignored and pushed away, so that people don't get to hear both sides of the story here. So I think that's where we need to start if we want to prevent it from happening again. Again, we need clarity, clear articulation, transparency from our own government and our own country
Well said.
in order to get a better sense of it.
And you're dealing with that on your show this afternoon.
We are.
3 p.m. Eastern on Fox News, The Story with Martha McCallum. We'll be watching that one. Thank you,
Thank you. It's
Martha.
good to see you.
Always appreciate it.